I misspelled Michael Crichton's name, I'm sure, because it's different each time. What's weird is it's not underlined like it needs to be spell checked, so I don't know what my computer thinks. Clooney, however, is underlined. That's because it's a lowercase c and not an uppercase c. And then Miguel Fiera, I didn't even know how to pronounce it, let alone spell it. Those are my notes. Here we go.
Your notes are just names?
They're just names, so I hope I know what they mean. I know I'll give you a little insight. I'll give you a little sneak peek into the notes. There's one here that says, hate the Jerry character, loved him on X-Files though. Here we go. You ready?
I'm ready.
Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Popcast, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning. And Tim.
Yes, Bob.
How are you?
I'm good.
How are you? Are you excited for our topic today?
I'm here for and we'll be talking about the topic. I'm here and ready to talk about today's topic. We're jumping in. That might be the best way to get this going.
We're getting right to it today.
Yeah, I mean, I think even the music's probably still playing at this point, but not the same music as the subject matter, the theme to the subject matter. What are we talking about today? Why don't we just jump into it instead of doing the normal hilarious banter that opens the show for 2 to 9 minutes?
We're talking about ER, the medical drama from the 90s, ER, which we discussed earlier, you and I.
Did we?
We've talked about doing an ER episode ever since it came.
Would you say not during the show, like as friends? No,
not during the show.
Communicate.
Offline, just between you and I. Ever
Prior
since
to
it showed up on
being
Hulu.
a thing, we were saying I'd love to do a talk show that incorporates elements of ER.
Yeah, but no, offline we were talking about possibly doing an episode about ER, and we finally got around to doing it, and that's what today is.
And you can check us out at www. No, you're right. That is today. So ER, big show, obviously popular show. Not a show I watched. That's I think maybe right into this. ER was a huge show. It was part of the must-see TV Thursday night television block, which I don't know. You want to talk about that first before we jump into it? Because honestly, that block of time, that 3 hours of time was vital viewing, I think, in college. I mean, that's where we would get our Friends, Seinfeld, Man of the People, Suddenly Susan, The Single Guy, Inside Schwartz, probably something else. Like it was just a rotation.
Caroline in the City, which actually I love. I liked that Caroline in the City.
Yeah, it was like, but every Thursday was NBC's powerhouse 2-hour block of just sitcoms. I don't know when it got branded must-see TV. I assume it was around the time Friends and stuff was starting. But what's odd to me is, it was 2 hours of hilarious modern city life romance, and then one bleak fucking hour of people dying on the operating table every week, and probably too many people every week, as we'll get into in a minute. It was a weird balance of television. Did you watch all 3 hours? Were you into the sitcoms followed by ER for Thursday nights?
I was, but I generally would watch Friends, and depending, I watched Caroline in the City the first season. I didn't really watch it past that, if it made it past that.
I think it was on for like 3 to 12 years.
Okay, well, I watched season 1.
Was Wings part of must-see TV, or was that in an era before it was must-see? It was just Wings.
I think it was before. Mad About You was for some time.
That's right, because it was part of that. They did like crossovers. There was a...
Right,
I remember there being like the
blackout or something.
Where everything but Seinfeld experienced this blackout. And probably not ER, because where does ER take place?
Chicago.
It is, as was Chicago Hope, I assume, another medical drama that premiered that same
year.
But so you would watch Friends.
I would watch Friends. I'd usually skip whatever was next. I'd watch Seinfeld and often skip whatever was next and then come back for ER.
And was that pretty much from the beginning? Because I'm trying to think. Did you and I watch Friends together? Was that I know we did once out of college, but in college?
I don't know if we did in college, and we certainly didn't at first. I know that we watched it. We watched it in college eventually because we were trying to create shows ourselves and do stuff at the school.
But we can watch things separately on our own. Like, I almost do feel like we each had our own circle of friends that would watch these shows, just because ER was not something I watched. And even when we lived together, Bob and I met and conferred to catch up a new listener, if we have one. Bob and I have been friends since college. That's where we met. We were also roommates for 3 years out of college. So I'm sure we were watching Friends together during that time, but I don't remember ever really watching ER with you. Like, I don't think I really knew you were even a fan of the show. Everyone seemed to watch ER, but I never did. So I never talked about it. So I didn't get a sense of it as this thing. Were you watching it by yourself, or was this like a group show to watch?
I was watching it by myself in college, and then eventually with my girlfriend after. I watched it straight through its entire, 12, 15 season run.
15 years. I was going to ask you, did you watch it all 15 years?
I did. Probably not as religiously the final couple of years, but I did. I carried through. They added characters and we lost characters. And there's a middle area there with Maura Tierney that I enjoy. She's great on the show.
Well, I guess just because what we're doing today, again, this is really your topic, I think. We're doing a binge and podcast, which is when we take a show.
Not exactly.
It's not exactly where we take a show. I always thought the binge and podcasts were a show from our youth that we took and we'd watch that we hadn't seen in a while. We'd watch a bunch of them in a row and see what that experience is like. Yes. Now, why is this different? Why is this not?
Well, this is a little different than our previous binge and podcasts because
it's a medical drama.
No,
because the first episode was 90 minutes. That's why it's different. That was a long. Did you know that?
True.
Going into it, that the pilot
I did not realize. I did not realize that at the time. I realized it after.
I realized it during.
But I didn't change my mind. This is different. It's different because our other binge and podcasts, we would pick a string of 4 or 5 episodes of something in consecutive order at some point in the run of the show and watch those episodes. This is a little different in that because it was my idea and it was a show that I watched and liked, I felt like I could maybe curate it for you and say, hey, here's 4 representative episodes of the show.
You picked. I know that they weren't in order. I knew that, but you specifically picked these 4 out of memory and for reasons.
Yes.
Okay. No, that's I think maybe how we're going to talk about this, because I will say this doesn't seem like the kind of show, at least for me, that I could binge watch. This is a hard thing to watch more than one in a row for a lot of reasons. It's exhausting is what it is. I don't know the characters that much. I think as we talk about these, there is one episode of these 4 that I really got sucked into. So I'll be excited to talk about that. But part of it was, there is a lot going on. I'm not putting the show down in terms of the size of what it's trying to do, but the majority of the episodes, it's like a day in the life. Here's 17 different surgeries that happen, just kind of walking in and out of that. And it's a lot to write, I'm sure. But watching them back to back was hard because it's just like, this is just surgeries. And who do I latch onto? Who do I hold on to? But I don't know. Was it easy for you to pick these 4 out?
Well, it was, well, I mean, it was difficult at first because I was trying to pick 4 episodes from the 90s.
Okay, from the 6 years of seasons.
Yeah, that was my initial thought. And I was like, that's ridiculous. And so what we ended up doing, what we're going to talk about, are 4 episodes from season 1.
I think is a good way to go because I think the show is finding itself.
Once I narrowed it down to season 1, it was pretty easy to pick these. But as I was watching him, I did regret the decision to curate these, to jump around to specific episodes, because you're absolutely right. You lose the flow of story. You lose character development. You don't know the characters. You're not going to know the characters watching just these 4 episodes. But if you had watched 4 episodes in a row and you saw the progression of these people and the build, what one character that I think watching these 4 episodes that stands out, maybe we'll talk about it as we go through it. The only one that I actually think we see grow watching these 4 jumping through season 1 is John Carter,
who Mars.
In the first episode, not of Mars, of the
is he not? Is that Chicago not John Carter of
County?
Mars?
County Hospital, Chicago County
the
Hospital, John
librarian.
Carter of
The librarian.
County. That's the one, the librarian. But why don't we actually start with episode 1 then? Because that's where we meet John Carter, and we see that he is the newbie.
Yeah.
Who is the incoming, not resident. What am I trying? Attending? No, resident.
I think it is resident.
I get them confused.
I don't know the terms, but yeah. Well, which I think. Why don't we start with that? Not knowing terms, because the pilot's called 24 Hours. I think it's one day in life. And this show, it was created by Michael Crichton. Is that how it's pronounced? Crichton?
Yeah, that's how I pronounce it. Crichton.
Yeah, who is a science fiction author, Andromeda Strain. I think he wrote Westworld. Was a doctor himself, correct? In real life?
That's what I believe, yes.
Because that makes sense.
He was the doctor. The other guy was the lawyer. Grisham was the lawyer.
Okay, because Michael Crichton wrote this pilot, and it's coming off the year after Jurassic Park, so I think he was a big name, so he got this show. And this show, it's not about dinosaur doctors, which I think I would have enjoyed. This pilot episode is doctor porn, basically. It's for people who are doctors to jerk off on themselves. It's tough talking doctors strutting around, talking cool 90s talk. I don't know if this is what an ER is or was actually like, but I'm sure that tons of surgeons, residents, nurses, and whatever's, they tuned in and started acting like this at their own job, which I think we've talked about. We do that. We've done that with stuff where you adopt it.
Sure.
I feel like this show is that, and this pilot, it's just, it's a lot of, it's very heavy in, this is how an operating room works. These are the words doctors say. And that's good. But it's also just, these doctors are jerks. These are assholes.
Several of them are.
And I mean, and you don't, like, you're talking about Carter. Carter is actually, there's two characters I like on this show. Again, it's because I remember them from other episodes. Carter, I very much like. And this episode, he's kind of like our entrance into the show. It's a normal day in the life of this hospital. And like you're saying, it's his first day as a resident and he's coming in. And that should have been, I think, a lot happens before he shows up. And that was part of the problem. I feel like it was just this rambling, tumbling show. Like I feel like had we just followed him in, starting his day with him, and that's how he met the doctors. I know that's stereotypical TV, but that's a nice setup. You probably could have cut 30 minutes out of the show too.
It is, I get that. It would have certainly helped, us schmoes who have never, held a scalpel,
right,
to get a better understanding of it.
Because everyone else, like you see Dr. Green at the beginning, he's sleeping in a closet, and it's artsy, but it's also really forced. Like he walks out of the closet and there's this cool blues guitar as he wanders the hallways, telling people off. Then we meet George Clooney, who is very bad at acting drunk. His drunk really annoyed the shit out of me. And he's like a sleazy ladies man doctor. I mean, these all feel like Aaron Sorkin surrogates. You have Eric LaSalle, who's nice to that's the one twist I kind of like. He's really nice to the patients. I thought, here's the good moral doctor. Then the moment he talks to a coworker, he's a jerk. But they're all just I just hated them. They're not endearing. I know that they become down the line, so I have that going for it. But really, between Carter and the good wife, what's her name? The nurse,
Juliana Margulies,
because she's neurotic and tries to kill herself. Carol, thank you. I liked her.
Carol.
Those two were interesting enough, but I don't know. I mean, like, do you like?
And they end up driving the series a lot, Carol and Carter.
So Carter he has a storyline
stuck around the longest.
Like, is you follow him through?
Yeah, he stays around the longest. He's great. Mm-hmm. He's the saving grace for many of the late seasons.
Now, did you see this one?
But yeah, I think I didn't see the pilot when it came out. I think I came in the second or third episode, and I went back and saw the pilot during its rerun.
Oh, okay.
And so I was a little lost a little bit with Carol's story because I didn't know that she had, and we'll spoil it for anybody, I didn't know she had attempted suicide in this pilot episode.
Does that ever come back, though? Or is that just kind of...
Oh, yeah. There's and that's another problem with jumping around. I was like, as I'm watching this, Tim has never seen this. Carol's going to show up. The next episode after this is episode 10. And Carol's going to be happy-go-lucky, working at the ER again. And I'm like, I'm sure he'll put it together that she survives, but still, you don't get
memories of the characters. But this is a pilot, I guess. I mean, watching this.
Yeah, and I think it suffers from it being a pilot, as a lot of pilots can suffer. They're trying to fit a lot of information in and give a lot of backstory and get you to know a lot of these characters quickly and as artistically, like you're pointing out, as possible. The way, as much as Clooney isn't a great drunk, I think it's an interesting way to introduce him when they're like, oh, you've got a patient, you got to see this guy. And it's like, oh, what is it? It's like, oh, it's Dr. Ross. And so it's like, oh, one of the doctors.
Ross.
Oh my God. Can you believe it? A doctor is showing up drunk. And then he ends up, hours later working, on patients, and he's a pediatrician. He's a kid doctor. He's like supposed to be the nicest of the doctors because he works on kids.
It's George Clooney, and George Clooney has charm, obviously, but he wasn't the actor he is now yet in this. And I don't know, it felt so sticky. It felt so showy. I didn't buy it. That's why, I don't even buy these characters. Like, do these characters feel like the characters they become? This, and again, I don't know.
No, not exactly. No. Carter does.
Yeah, okay.
But everybody else is, like a shade of who they are. Mm-hmm. Like Mark isn't as.
Who's Mark? Which character is Mark?
Mark Green.
Oh, Dr. Green.
Is Dr. Green. He's not as hard as he is in this episode. He's a much softer character, and I think you see that even in the episodes we subsequently watch.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So he softens from there. And George Clooney's character becomes more likable and less of a ladies' man. I mean, he's still a ladies' man, but you see him struggle with his own self identity, and you don't get a hint of that really in this episode. And I think that's part of what they're trying to set up is this very shallow asshole of a doctor who'll show up to work drunk, and then again we miss it here in these episodes because we jump around, but it does build and lead up to, some good character development and changes for the character. Mm-hmm. And I think that does it for all of them. I don't think Carol in this episode is as representative as she ends up being.
Oh, probably not. I think it was just carrying the weight of, I think I remember that character and trying, because just to do this, I really had a hard time with this. It was just too much. Like there's monologuing and bad patient monologuing. There's a scene where this girl is sitting on the gurney. She's like, I wrecked the car. It had power steering and air conditioning. Like she's going on this thing about cars. And I'm like, this is like an Aaron Sorkin wad of mouth jizz blowing around. And it's just so annoying. We get 2 cancer diagnosis scenes in one episode, and actually of those 2 scenes, my favorite scene in this episode, and I noticed this through all 4 episodes, sometimes the patients or the guest stars are, at least in retrospect, are more interesting. I don't know if that's true when you're first watching it, but I'm going to mispronounce his name. I mispronounced it before the show too. Miguel Fiera, I think is the actor's name. He passed away last year.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, he has a scene with Nurse Sherry,
Dr.
Lewis, thank you. Where he gets diagnosed with cancer, and again, it's a scene. It's almost like an audition monologue. Everything in this felt like audition monologues because he's a character who he's not a returning character. He's here the one time, and he's terminal, so he's not a returning character. But he has this very powerful scene of coming to grips with cancer, and that was the one moment that worked in this show for me. Well, I guess the stuff with Carter did too, but like that was a very real moment and a very touching moment.
Sure.
And it was a character who isn't part of the show. When your pilot's trying to build up what the show's about, and it's not, it was just this random monologue. And I think it's his performance. I don't think it's good material. I think he's a good, powerful performer to watch. So I don't know, this whole, I mean, this show was liked out of the gate, right? Like people like the show at the beginning.
Yeah, it was well received.
Had there ever been anything on TV
right from the start?
Like, was it new? Was there something about this that was different? Was it because we just done Jurassic Park?
As I recall, I think the pull for it was the pseudo realism of the show.
blood.
other medical dramas.
There was blood on the show.
Lots of blood, honestly, but also the chaos of the emergency room. It's not, these pretty nurses and they are pretty nurses and pretty doctors, but it's not these gussy actors, walking in, smoking their cigarettes, looking at X-rays, and just chatting to the patients. It's the patients coming in agony, screaming, blood spurting, the doctor shouting commands, push the lidocaine, do all this, And
this was new.
Camera
this was new to TV.
Spinning around. I feel like it was new. I mean, I'm no historian when it comes to television, but I feel like it was new. I'm trying to think of, you take Chicago Hope, which came out the same year.
That's true.
I don't think it was like that. That was more of a hospital drama where the doctors had conference rooms and had discussions, and it was that kind of thing. Whereas this was in the heat of it, the action.
What do you think got this made then? What was the floodgate that opened that, allowed that? What do you think people were dying for that? Do you think, why? The show, you're right, the show, and to watch it, it's very well filmed.
From my perspective, I like that kind of thing. I like that in movies and TV shows where you get to see, presumably, I don't know if this is real, like you were saying, who knows how real this is, but presumably this is more realistic than anything I've seen before. And you get little intricate details of things. And I like that in any sort of movie where it's like the background stuff of a bomb squad or details of a con, things that just aren't out there and known by everyone. And again, I don't know that it's real necessarily, but to see how they organize things and plan and push things around. And it just was very interesting to me. And the thing that I liked about ER, and you still don't even see it today on like Grey's Anatomy, or they've got all their, NBC has all these Chicago shows now, Chicago Hospital. They might as well just continue ER.
And they're treating it like Chicago's this real place. Like everyone's got a job.
But it's what was different about ER was that it was dirty. It was seemingly real, whereas everything else was like a stage and a set. This was like the way they built the sets and did the camera work. You could figure out the layout of this ER. It changed over the course of a couple of years, but once it was set in, you knew when they were turning the corner, you knew what room they were in, and it was trauma 1 or trauma 2, easy. So I just really liked that about it. That's what drew me to it initially, was that it was almost like a documentary. Just kind of putting you in the realism of it. Pseudo realism.
Well, that's the thing too. It's interesting with this stuff, like you were saying, with how a bomb squad works. Again, we don't really know. We're being told, or we're assuming because we haven't seen it before, that this is how it must work because it's so chaotic, and it's beautifully chaotic. I don't know how you direct a show like this. I don't really know how you write a show like this, to be honest. But I think in binge watching 4 in a row, that is exhausting. Because of that nature.
Did you do 4 in one sitting?
And the chaos of the hospital. When we get to the one that I liked, it makes sense because it almost breaks it up a little bit. It's just, it's to me, and again, the show is watched every week. It wasn't watched a bunch in a row, but it's too chaotic for me. It's just too, especially in this pilot. It's just because I'm not attached to anyone. I don't know how this would have worked as a movie. It's written as a movie. It's 90 minutes, but it's setting up a show. So I get all that. And pilots, we haven't talked about that many pilots on the show. And that's true. Pilots are an interesting thing because they're usually a little off from the rest of the show. But without anyone to attach to, the chaos is hard to be invested in. And why don't we jump into the next episode? Because actually that starts out, I think, with a perfect example of this. Is that cool, or did you have more you want to say about the pilot?
No. Yeah, I was going to say that the chaos of this pilot episode just didn't sit well with you. And then my second choice is episode 10 from season 1, entitled Blizzard, which doesn't start out with chaos, but the majority of the episode is just a lot more chaos.
That's true. What it does start out with was like a day in the life kind of, nobody's here today, and this doctor's rollerblading, and they're going to put a fake cast on the librarian's leg and stuff like that. Like, it starts off with that. And what I couldn't stand that when it started, because it's like, if you don't know the characters, if you're not really invested and really like a cast of characters, it's very hard to tolerate a nothing's happening today scene. And I know it doesn't last for the whole episode, but the beginning of this, I'm just like, is this what the show is? Do doctors really roller skate around the operating room? Do they really play pranks that could break the leg?
That was a nurse.
That was it. Okay. Do nurses really like that? All that. I was just like, I don't care about any of this. So that was hard.
And that's my fault. That's my fault.
Right.
And
that again,
I'm going to say, no. But had we decided to just pick 4 consecutive episodes, I think you would find your reaction different.
You got hooked on the show without seeing the first one. You tuned in later, you said.
No, but I missed the first one, but I watched episode 2, and then I followed that with episode 3, and followed that with episode 4. Mm-hmm. So and so on.
I mean, it may not be.
So that's what we didn't
either.
do.
It's just, I don't know. This was just another thing. It was just like, who am I following? What am I watching? And this episode, episode, as another one, is directed by Mimi Leader. If I'm mispronouncing her name, I apologize.
No, that's correct. Yes, she directed many of these.
Yeah, she also directed
many ER episodes.
Because she directed the George Clooney movie, The Peacemaker. She directed Deep Impact. She's a really good director, and there's a lot going on in this. And the next episode that she directed, that's really good, that I really enjoyed the look of it. But that's these kind of shows, they seem formulaic. Like, and there are real stakes. I get it. Like, I don't even remember what happens in this episode. Is it St. Patrick's Day or something? Is that this one? No.
It's just a blizzard. Okay. There's a snowstorm.
The first one,
and
was
that's
St.
why
Patrick.
the ER.
There's a car accident or something.
Yeah,
and it's
the ER is slow because nobody can get out, and so nobody's doing anything. But then there's a car accident, and another area hospital had lost power because of the storm, and so they got the majority of the patients, and there were like 40 to 80 or something like that had to come in with varying degrees of injuries. And yeah, see, you were just saying that the show is formulaic, and it is, and you were saying like you weren't sure how they write it. I think what it is that. And I'm no expert. I didn't write for the show, but I think what they do is they find interesting cases, interesting ways to have someone come in injured, and how to figure out how to help them. And I think that's sort of like the center of the show, where they break that up. It's like, okay, we'll have this injury and this illness, and then they sprinkle in little by little personal interaction between the doctors, the regular cast. Mm-hmm. And it's those little bits of personal interactions that over the course of several episodes in order build the characters and build our relationship and connection to them. And so each of these episodes had that, but because we skipped the other 9, you're not seeing that. And so, yeah, it is difficult to connect to these characters, but there is something like, for instance, in this one, when Dr. Ross shows up, in the blizzard episode, and he has his date with him, and they had just come back from Bermuda. This is like his girlfriend that he took
Dr.
on
Ross
after
is George Clooney,
Margulies.
correct? That's George Clooney.
It's George Clooney. Carol, the nurse that he had a relationship with prior,
that's the good wife,
is now involved with another guy, another doctor at the hospital who we don't see in any of these episodes that we watched. So you don't have that. We've never seen that interaction. We haven't seen how George reacts to that other boyfriend, and how she reacts. Nurse Hathaway reacts to George's rotating crew of women. And so when he comes back, this is the episode where she has announced her engagement. She has the ring. And so that really doesn't mean much to us, skipping over those other episodes.
I've watched Friends. I could gather where the plot is going.
You can gather, absolutely, but you can't connect. And that's what you're saying. It's like you just didn't know who to connect to. And I understand that. And I think that's at the fault of skipping episodes.
Well, but you, like you said, curating was the word used at the start. What made you pick this as, I mean, I get why you picked the pilot. Let's start on firm ground with the pilot. Why pick Blizzard? What in this, do you remember seeing this when it first aired?
Yeah, I do. I do remember seeing it when it first aired. This was like, the event episode that I remembered from this season. And so many shows that followed, and perhaps there were shows that did this before. I'm not familiar with that, but so many shows do this since. I'm not saying ER was the first, but I really remember this episode in that suddenly you go from 0 to 60, and it's not just your average day. It is a very unique experience in the ER where everybody who was in this car accident is showing up at this hospital, and there is not a moment that they're not running from one gurney to the other room, up to the OR, down to the X-ray. It's just nonstop through the whole episode because of the Blizzard.
Hence the title, because of the Avengers villain Blizzard. So okay, I mean, and it is like an event, and that's the thing. Like in watching these four, two of them I remember the commercials for. Actually, the next two are the two I remember. Yeah, it's first. They were promoted as events, and that's interesting. Also, I think the show can be watched out of order. I think someone can come into it and get caught up in the drama. I'm not saying that, but when you originally watched this, so you knew these characters by then. When you were watching it, when you got to this is like the 10th episode. Who was your favorite character on the show? Like, who were you really attached to?
I really liked. Well, now I can't think of her name. Sherry.
Stringfield, Dr. West? No.
Oh, God, why can't I think of it now? Dr. Lewis. Right. I really liked Dr. Lewis.
And was she on the show through the whole
And I also
run?
liked Mark Green. No, she left and then came back. So, yeah, she had a couple different runs. But I really liked Dr. Lewis at that time. I liked Dr. Green at that time, too.
That's George Clooney's character.
He was
that's the Anthony Edwards character.
Anthony Edwards. He was probably my favorite. Carter grew on me after the first season. And Carter ended up being my favorite overall.
Did you like him going back to these episodes? Did you like him as a character?
Yeah, I did. I think, and I really liked how, compared to the first episode, how different he was in the last episode we watched, which was the second to last of the season. I won't skip ahead to that, but even in these 4 episodes, I liked seeing him grow. Overall, he's the one that goes through the most change. Well, Dr. Green goes through some stuff. But yeah, Carter is like really the through line for, I don't know, like 12 seasons at least.
I think he's the entry character, and it's an ensemble show. And I think ensemble shows that have no central character. Friends was an ensemble show, but I think when Friends started, we got into it through Rachel. Rachel was our gateway to each of these friends. And then slowly, I think it splintered out to everyone else. But with this, I think Carter is the logical choice. And I get that. But it's not really set up that way. And I that is the character.
Well, I don't think.
But I feel like I'm not getting into the show through him the way I want to, the way I would hope for.
Yeah, and I don't think they knew who or if any, I think they thought Mark Green would be your main character. He's the very first one we meet, and he's also the last one in that episode. So it's really his story. It's his 24 hours. So I think they thought Mark Green would be the lead. I don't think Carter was going to be the lead.
Pilot, that makes sense.
And I don't think and I don't think that they really had any idea like who would stand out. I don't know if they knew what the storylines were, because I do know, or I had read that Nurse Hathaway, who committed suicide or attempted suicide in episode 1, was supposed to die. Like that was the original script, that she was going to die, and her death and Dr. Ross's guilt over it was supposed to be a major storyline. But they liked the actress so much and they liked the character, they changed that and kept her around. Would
she have died in the pilot, or this would have been as a series?
She would have died in the pilot, or maybe the next episode it would have been confirmed. But she was supposed to have died. I think they even filmed, I think I read where they filmed that she died and then just cut that out because they quickly changed their mind.
Are there any characters like in the first, to go back to the pilot for a minute, that you think were set up to be characters that didn't catch on, like people who they're there. They obviously were cast, they have lines, and then you don't see them again. Like, can you think of anyone? Because it's by luck that all the characters we know through the series are all there at the beginning. They're not all there, but that they stick with it. Are there any characters that you think of that they tried out that just didn't work? Because I have one in mind.
The only one that comes to mind, I mean, none of the main characters, but there was the X-ray tech that
I like that guy.
Took forever to.
I like that guy.
I liked him too, but he showed up in another episode, one of these episodes.
I think he did.
I didn't expect to ever see him again.
So I feel like in the pilot, they're setting up certain relationships, and one is this character named Mrs. Raskin, this wacky old lady debutante who comes in to get a hangnail off. I hated her so much. And when she shows up, I felt like this is the character that they want to love. Here comes the wag. This felt like an 80s soap opera, like night soap thing where it's like the wag.
No, but Blizzard has that character.
She comes back in the Blizzard.
I forget his.
Oh, you're talking about Patrick?
But a similar,
the mentally challenged character with the helmet.
Yeah,
I hated
he comes,
that character.
I knew you would.
Is he in multiple
He's
episodes?
No radio.
He's no radio, but he's doing radio shtick.
He's in multiple episodes.
That's just and again, worthwhile character when performed well, but it's probably such a hard thing to perform. And I don't think this actor does it well. And it's just he's too cutesy. It's like, oh, he's wearing a football helmet and a robe, and he walked through the snow. Okay, why isn't anyone watching out for this guy?
Right.
Well, and what he pisses doctors off. He puts his dumb stereo on, which is almost a Bruce Springsteen Christmas song, but it's a different one. It's the holidays. I hated that character. And I think we're supposed to love him. Yeah. I think we're supposed to think, what a great addition to this cast. When does he get into the OR to cut someone open? But yeah, stuff like that. It seems like such sucky writing, especially, and again, this is in retrospect, when it's surrounded by a cast that, again, these are talented actors and doing some amazing work. I just not invested in it. But yeah, he just stuck out. How does he get introduced into the show? I'm not being insensitive. He is mentally challenged, and it's.
I don't quite remember how he gets introduced. I think he's just,
someone opened a locker and he fell out of a locker.
No, you're not being insensitive at all. No, I think he just is a character that was introduced. Like, this was his work program that he does with his school or whatever. I'm not sure.
He works there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That he's like I wouldn't call him a candy striper, but he does work there. Okay. He was supposed to be there. No one was surprised that he was behind the desk.
Did he get written out, or did he last for a while on the show?
He lasted a while. I really don't know. Chances are, knowing ER, he probably got shot and they had to work on him or something.
So they have to work.
You know what I mean? Like, that's
and get under their hoods. Did you like that character?
But, no, he wasn't the character I tuned in for.
Do you feel bad about
what
not
did you
liking
think in
him?
the Blizzard? No, I do not.
Because he's not a good character, right? We can agree that he's a bad character.
He's not. He's
a challenging character.
What did you think about? I'm curious what you thought about Bob in the Blizzard episode.
Bob, who's Bob?
And what happened there? Bob is the one that you think doesn't know much. She's from Poland.
Yeah, who the fuck was that?
And she's the character. Well, again, this is when I was watching this. It's like, this isn't really going to be as effective for Tim because he didn't see Bob in any of the previous episodes where she's just a nurse's aide. And you don't see her in the next two. So I was just curious. Again, this is why I was like, curating, it's okay. I think if we curate again, we should curate for a series where it's more standalone.
No, I don't think so.
Where there's like one.
This is an interesting way of approaching a show as well.
Yeah, you think so?
Watch it this way. Some people just see it sporadically. Bob was a character. That's the thing. Like, she's this character from Poland who's at the hospital, who was some sort of specialist in Poland, and I don't know what she's studying at the hospital or something. She just reaches into someone's gut and holds it together or something. Am I correct with that? Like, someone's on the operating.
Something to that effect. She basically is there as like a receptionist and a nurse's aide or something.
She's a receptionist.
Yeah, something to that effect. She's not a
she's
doctor.
In a position in a hospital to stick her hands in someone.
No, they are, because of the blizzard, they are overwhelmed. There isn't an OR doctor to come down and do what needs to be done to save this guy who's got some sort of leak in his gut. She's there. Everybody's crazy. He's about to die. She is a surgeon in her native homeland. So she just grabs the scalpel, jumps in, performs the procedure that ties up the leak or whatever, the bleeder, and then stops, just went on instinct. And then everybody's looking at her and she freaks out because she doesn't have her medical license in America yet. She was working there to work towards that. She has to study and take the American medical exams. And so that was the big reveal. She had been in 2 or 3 episodes before that. And so that was a big reveal in this episode.
That's a cool storyline. Yeah, I had forgotten about that. I guess I didn't write it in my notes because I was too busy wondering how many mixtapes Patrick had made, or if it was just the same mixtape and if he was singing on one of them. But no, I assume she gets written out. She's not on the show for multiple years.
Yeah, I don't recall her coming back as some sort of, award-winning surgeon later.
There were tons of characters I was looking for. There was River Song from Doctor Who is on the show, but she didn't show up. Mara Tierney, John Stamos, I forgot, had been on this show. There's a lot of people who come and go later.
Late years. Yeah. Kelly Martin.
That name sounds familiar, but I don't know who that is.
From the Wonder Years.
Oh, okay. Is that Winnie? No.
No, that's...
Olivia Diabo. No? Her name is Kelly Martin.
No, okay. Kelly Martin. Although I think Olivia Diabo has been on ER.
Okay. So there are a lot of people who haven't been on. Why don't we do a list of people who haven't been on ER? Mandy Patinkin, Hector Alonso, the rest of the cast of Chicago Hope. I don't know. Yeah, did you like Blizzard? Is that like a typical ER episode that you like? It sounds like it is from what you're describing. It's like the insurmountable events.
I like Blizzard. The event episode. There have been other event episodes from the series that I remember. Large accidents, train derailments. There's a great one from season 2 that I don't want to spoil it, because if we ever come back and curate another season of this, that's going to be one of the episodes I want. So I'm not going to
hold our breath for that.
I'm thinking of.
Sounds good.
But yeah, no. I was going to say, speaking of people that have been on, that guest stars on ER, I think that's a good segue to the next episode, if you're ready for that. I'm
totally ready for that. This was the episode I liked. This was the episode. It's funny, too.
I knew
Love's Labor's Lost is the title of it. Yeah. And the title gives it away, so I saw it coming, because that title is telling you what happens in the episode.
Sure is.
But when this one started, I was so squirmy. I was like, I'm sick of this show. I was like, I don't want to watch anymore. We're only 2.5, because that pilot was fucking long. But it starts off with George Clooney and the Revenge of the Nerds guy playing basketball. So, right? I think? Or are they just walking? Are they playing basketball at the beginning of this?
I can't remember. No, football.
I did not enjoy watching the doctors do their sports. I mean, I get it, but I didn't enjoy that. But they're outside, and then someone drives up and throws like someone out of a car. I think it prompts George Clooney to call him a butthole or butthead or something is what he shouts at the car.
Sure.
I was just like, I don't want to watch another episode of just because it's like too cool for school doctors talking nerd sports, which is probably what people do. I'm not invested in them. And I thought this is going to be another, here's 42 surgeries in 42 minutes. But this one has a bit of a false start with that, because it does. It's got Eric LaSalle's mom comes in, and there's this plot line that doesn't get resolved about her needing surgery but not wanting her son to see her naked or something. But the majority of this episode is about Dr. Green, which gave me something to latch on to. Because you follow him for an entire story, and there's an arc to it, and there's failure in it, and there's heartbreak in it, and there's Bradley Whitford in it, and there's Condi Alexander. Well, she's in Eric LaSalle's story, but Condi Alexander was in this episode. Agent May from S.H.I.E.L.D. was in this episode. It was exciting, actually, to see all the non-main characters show up. But also, it was another one directed by Mimi Leader, and it was written by Lance A. Gentile was the name of the author. So when that came up, I thought that was like, I thought it was going to be about like warts or something, but no, it's not. But no, I cried in this episode.
Yeah.
Embarrassingly.
Oh, me too.
Really choked up. because it's all about, and again, it telegraphs it a little bit. You get it's about a couple who,
what I like, not what I like, but it's interesting. Yes, it telegraphs it. I gave you the title, so it would be easy for you to find on Hulu. Hulu has the title right there. But back when we were watching this on broadcast television, I never knew the title unless it happened to show up on screen, and I can't remember if this one does. I was going to say
they all actually, when the show aired, did it start with a previously on ER when it used to air on TV?
Yeah, it usually does.
Those weren't on this.
No, they weren't on our screenings. But yeah, I like this one because you kind of already said it. It's a false start. You've got the gang member that shows up, and you're trying to figure out what's going on with him. There's also a little boy that shows up. No, it doesn't come back. There's a boy that shows up, and it turns out that we think he has insecticide poisoning. He doesn't. We don't know what happens to him.
Doesn't come back.
Because it basically. No, that doesn't come back. So it basically sets it up like any other ER episode that now that we're 19 episodes in, we're kind of used to the formula.
The 19th episode.
There's going to be 4 or 5 different cases to follow. And it starts that way, including a pretty straightforward bladder infection pregnancy situation. But then that's the couple that we follow through the rest of the episode with little hints to Eric LaSalle's mom having hipster surgery. She had to get a boogaloo out of her. I don't know.
But no, it's still telegraphed. Like the pregnant couple is a fun couple, and they're making jokes, and they got to come up with a name for the kid. So let's ask Dr. Ross's opinion. And it's Bradley Whitford, who
Dr. Green.
What did I call him? Dr. Ross.
Yeah, you're mixing
Rachel Green, Dr. Ross. But I like Bradley. Do you like Bradley Whitford? I feel like you do. I feel like
I love Bradley Whitford.
He is a good actor, but there's also he has a swagger that sometimes I'm not. When I know he's coming up, I'm like, he's got a cool dude voice. I hated him for a season on The West Wing, and then I liked him. He's a really good actor. Yes, he's really good. But when I saw him on this, and he's very young, which is odd because it's only 6 years before The West Wing, but he seems very young. The same thing with Agent May. What's her name? Ming-Na Wen. She looks so fucking young in this.
Right.
And it's 26 years ago. That's probably why. Or 24 years ago. But I saw Bradley Whitford. I don't know. Like, there are TV actors that when you see, you kind of know what you're going to get, right? That maybe color the role a little bit.
Sure.
And he's one. It's hard for me to see past Bradley Whitford, even though he's an amazing actor. But I don't know. Does it make sense? Like, he has he's a good Aaron Sorkin vehicle because he delivers that cool dude, misogynistic.
That rapid fire, smarter than you are. Yeah.
But he was very touching.
And I think,
to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're projecting our 20 odd years of Bradley Whitford knowledge onto this character.
No one probably knew him when this started. I don't think he was a known actor.
I certainly didn't. Yeah.
But no, this story.
Yeah, this episode and this story, it stuck with me. It's still with me. I mean, it's one of the episodes I chose. And when I found out years later that was Bradley Whitford in this episode, I was like, well, yeah, wow, that's amazing because it had such an effect on me. This actor, this scene, this whole episode had such an effect.
I remember this commercials for this. I remember this episode being advertised, something ER frequently employed, and their commercials were, you don't want to miss the last 42 minutes of tonight's ER. On tonight's ER, a doctor goes too far, and you won't believe the gurney and who's on the gurney and what happens with the gurney or whatever. Like, they promoted them as being like, this is groundbreaking TV every fucking week from what I remember. And this one I do remember. And so I wonder if this was, and maybe Ian, you'll know because you watched the show, was this a turning point for the show? Was this the first time a character, I mean, this is a Dr. Green episode.
Yeah.
If I have the doctor's name right. Is this the first time the show broke with the tradition of here's 42 diseases?
I kind of believe it is. I would have to go back and check, but it feels like it is that breakaway. It purposely starts the episode off like it's just a regular episode, and then.
So you think that's meant to lull us into something?
I do. I think it does so effectively. Except we kind of knew what was coming. But I think if you're watching it for the first time, it would have been very effective. And even knowing it was effective, we both
it was still
acknowledged
effective.
that we were moved.
To spoil it for everybody, the baby makes it, but the wife does not. And honestly, I didn't know which one. I knew it was going to be one of them wasn't going to make it, but I pretty much thought it was going to be the baby. But yeah, this is a heart-wrenching episode, and I did cry, and I was intrigued. I liked Dr. Green in this. I liked the moment that he had with Carter, where Carter came in to comfort him in a very actually believable way. That's not schmaltzy.
Yeah, and he says nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, well, because I don't think it probably hits him weird because it is a weird thing to hear, and it conflicts with what he thinks. But no, thanks. But this showed a complexity to Dr. Green, and it showed some fragility to his tough guy exterior that was in the pilot, and I guess continues through. No, I did enjoy this episode a lot, and I'm glad I saw it. And but this episode is why I can't watch more than one of these episodes at a time, because either I'm going to be thoroughly annoyed by them, or I don't know. Because I like high stakes dramatic shows. I normally like having my heart tugged at and feeling the weight of these characters in shows that I watch. Yeah. And there are plenty of shows that do that. A lot of them are science fiction for me. Maybe that's different when it's a medical drama like this. Yeah, I can't take multiple episodes of it. But I mean, do you remember the promotions for ER? Do you remember how it was sold to the audience? I feel like that's how it was sold. You won't be able to handle tonight's ER. Right after Man of the People with Dabney Coleman.
I honestly don't. I don't recall how it was advertised. That hasn't stuck with me.
That's how I know the show. Because again, I wasn't watching it week to week. In fact, the next episode, the last episode that you picked, is probably the first episode of ER I ever watched.
I wonder why.
Well, what's the next episode? What's the last episode of this binge that we
watched? This is the penultimate episode of the season, episode 24. There's a 25th episode, but so this doesn't have a cliffhanger. This is
this the next
24.
Last episode? There aren't a couple after it?
I think there's only one more after this for season one.
I don't think any
maybe two. I thought it was only one more, but this is called Motherhood.
Another parent-based episode.
Yes, and I did not intend for that to happen. I believe a baby is born in every episode we watched.
Of ER ever. There's 350 episodes. That's 350 babies with a survival rate of about 200. So that's pretty good.
Not bad.
But yes, Motherhood is the name of this episode. And what would you say makes this episode, especially when it aired in 1995, kind of stick out from the other episodes of this?
Yes, and it's the reason I picked it for this curated binge.
Of course it had to be. I was wondering if you're going to try to play this off as like, oh, I didn't realize. But no, it was intentional.
No, it was intentional. I thought, hey, what's more 90s than an episode of ER directed by Quentin Tarantino?
The only television ever directed by Quentin Tarantino. I don't know how it happened, because apparently there's all these things with different guilds, because they also wanted him to direct an X-Files episode, but he couldn't. But he did this. Yeah, Quentin Tarantino, coming off of Pulp Fiction.
That's right.
Directed this. And that's the thing. I remember this episode airing, because Quentin Tarantino was a god at this point. Pulp Fiction wasn't even a year old, but people were worshiping him, wondering what's next. I think Destiny on the Radio was the next thing he did. But I remember this airing. I remember the commercials for this airing. Did
you watch it when it aired? Because
that's the thing. Well, I tuned in for, the commercials had like Sherry Springfield or whatever her name is, and the good wife in sunglasses, which I guess meant it's Quentin Tarantino, because here they are in sunglasses. I remember that from the commercials. Now, I remember the start with the Beatles tape, like they're delivering the baby and they're like, you got to find the right tape. And they're going through all these cassette tapes. Like, I remember that. And I remember thinking, oh, it's Tarantino because it's the music. So I remember watching that part and then walking out. I didn't stick around for this episode. But I do remember it was a big deal that he directed it, and you can see some of that. You know that you can
definitely.
See, but it's another rambling episode of just surgery after surgery, and I can't sit through another one of those. Was what I was thinking.
It's hard to do that. Yeah, it for me. Like, I don't know. I like the pace of ER. I enjoy ER, and I've missed ER. I watched ER a lot, so I wasn't as effective. And I'll admit, I split this between two nights. So I watched the the 2-hour premiere and Blizzard, and then last night I watched Love, Labor, Lost, and Motherhood. So I guess I had a bit of a break that you didn't get, and I apologize.
That's a nice reprieve, though. That's fine. That's cool. Truthfully, I did it that way too. I was just talking it up like I did them all one night. That's exactly how I watched it. I watched 2. I just thought it meant more if I said 4. Maybe like 4. Sorry. But talking about this episode, I mean, because really, it's interesting because this is how big ER was, that the biggest director of the time could swoop in and direct it. You never got Wes Anderson directing a Friends episode. You never got Steven Spielberg directing a Automan episode. I don't know. But you got Tarantino directing this, and I mean, that in a way it'd be cool if this was like a showcase for directors, because this is a show that visually you can play around with. Is this the kind of show you would want to see Quentin Tarantino direct?
No, not really. It doesn't, like, when I was watching it then, I guess I wasn't really in tune with stylistics and that sort of stuff, and so it never struck me as a different kind of episode. Watching it now and knowing more about Tarantino, you could definitely see bits, and the music, especially at the opening. I feel like that's the thing too. I don't think he's credited as a writer on the episode.
He's not,
but I get the sense that he rewrote some things and changed some things in a way that he'd be able to direct things and add things that were Tarantino-esque, like the Yosemite Sam T-shirt that she wears.
Which is so blatant. And
that was like, okay, there's Tarantino. And then there's, I forget what the surgery was for, but they had to get a bone saw and get into a guy's chest for some reason.
That bar out of it. Yeah,
the bar. And so he had a lot of close-ups. They had a lot of close-ups that the show usually doesn't have.
Yeah, there were some cool angles. I mean, there's a fight in the operating room at one point, which seems like, that's Tarantino. Like, it all seems almost like a quaint parody of him now, sort of.
Right.
You know what I thought was odd about this is George Clooney, who winds up working with Quentin Tarantino. He's horrible in this episode. Like, he's trying to be a Tarantino character. I think he's acting differently than he did in the other 3, and he's not good. He's doing some weird rambling guy thing and it feels so rehearsed. Yeah. Like it's trying so hard to be the cool.
Stutter.
And it was, I mean, he doesn't normally, that wasn't his character. It was awful. Like, it was horrible. I felt like he was almost ashamed. Like, he was like, oh, Tarantino's here. And he was just doing his little, like, I got to be cool. I mean, did you feel that? Like, everyone else seemed like their character. He did not. And it's weird because he goes on to work with them.
That definitely stood out. That just, the way I approached it, though, it stood out as a bad episode for Clooney. And for me, my reaction to it was, there's really not much Clooney in any of these episodes. There's like a scene here, a scene there, but he's not showcased, and that's something I wasn't expecting. I couldn't remember how involved each character was.
Like, of the first season,
he was a main
breakout
character.
actor, but
absolutely. I'm sure there are episodes in between these 4 that we picked where he's got the main storyline. He's got the Dr. Green storyline that we saw in Love's Labor Lost. And these episodes just did showcase that. And when we did see him, I think we saw him most in this last episode, and it just wasn't very well done.
The
whole storyline that he had was cliche. And so I feel like his acting was cliche. It was the love triangle. It was the, you want to commit? Well, then I'm going to cheat on you. And
but this is even before that. This is like when you first see him and he comes on screen. Like, I just feel like, it's like if you're a kid in high school and it's like, we're doing West Side Story and you get to be the one cool guy in West Side Story. All right, I got to do this now. Like, it just seemed like that. And it just and I was just like, of everyone here, is like, really? Because Carter's still Carter, Dr. Green is still Dr. Green. Eric LaSalle doesn't do much. He seemed a little like forced with one of his lines, but George Clooney is he a good actor? I know he is now. But is he a good actor on ER? And I'm singling him out because he's the biggest name to come out of this, and because I know him from other things. I don't really know him from this. And I like George Clooney. I like him as an actor.
Yeah,
and I
do
want to
too.
like him in this.
I remember him being a good actor, but you're right. These episodes, yeah. I mean, that's my recollection, but these episodes don't showcase that. And I think he got better, and I think he had more storylines in season 2 and 3. I think he left in season 5.
Oh, so he was on it for 4 years.
Yeah, he left in 4 or 5, season 4 or 5. Yeah, so maybe season 1 just isn't his time, but I remember enjoying him.
But do you remember? There's a Friends episode that he and Carter guest star. That's from this same season. So, and the audience goes crazy for them. He was already a breakout star.
Yeah.
People already liked him on it, I guess.
Well, I mean, he was familiar to me. I knew George Clooney.
From Facts of Life.
Maybe I didn't know him by name, but yeah, Facts of Life, Roseanne, and the sitcom ER. I watched that before this came out.
Actually, he was a doctor on Facts of Life too.
Was he really?
He was.
That I don't remember.
And his plot line is he loses a patient, which I think also happened on this. Maybe. Did you like this Tarantino episode?
I did. I did enjoy it. Yeah, I liked the through line. I mean, it's called Motherhood. It happens on Mother's Day. I guess that's maybe all a little forced, but I did like the little slice of life bits of different mothers and sons and daughters connecting and disconnecting.
The fact that it's a Tarantino episode, I'm wondering if that distracted me. Like, would this have worked more for me, or would it have just been another run-of-the-mill episode? Because it's obnoxious. Them in sunglasses walking around is fucking obnoxious. Sitting in their beach chair on for no reason, having I thought I was watching these on Hulu. I thought that was a commercial for a wine cooler.
I don't think they ever before or since went up to the roof and sat in their lawn chairs. No,
this is Tarantino's whatever it is, but just there were too many distractions in it. Like Kevin Smith directs Flash episodes, directs what else has he done? I think I don't know if he's done Supergirl episodes. And again, he hasn't consistently directed that I know, so I don't know what his style is now. But I don't see those and think that's Kevin Smith. They're well directed, but they fit the continuity of the show. They work within the show. He's good at. It's not that he's mimicking a look. It's just he's not drawing attention to. Here's Kevin Smith. The characters might talk comics a little bit, but it's not any different. He's not plugging himself. But this did feel like a pretty big one for the time, too. This was a victory for the show to get, I'm sure, to get him directing it.
Yeah, I mean, it's why I picked it. It's so of the moment that ER became the biggest hit of the time. It was the #1 show for the next 8-9 years.
It was,
And Tarantino just had his big hit. I think he had won the Oscar for the script for Pulp Fiction by this point. I'm not sure when he directed the episode, but it aired towards the end of the season. So like May or something in 95. And so, yeah, it was a pretty big pop culture kind of moment. And I think when I watch this episode, I see a standard regular ER episode. And then here's 2 minutes of Quentin Tarantino. And then here's the regular ER episode. And here's 2 more minutes of Quentin Tarantino.
Why does a show like this last 15 years? I mean, ER, I was shocked. I do remember when the final season was, so I could have done the math, but it was on for 15 years. Yeah. Carter was on it for 15 years, I think. I think he was on
most of it. He took, I think in the later seasons, he took sabbaticals, so he wasn't around for maybe 6 episodes in a row, but then he was back. He was still part of the series. I think a series like this lasts because the unfolding of these characters and these storylines take longer, because it's not about just those storylines. It's not just about those relationships. Those relationships unfold a lot slower because you've got to have all the medical stuff, all the guest stars that are suffering from brain tumors and rebar through their stomachs.
That's the word.
It's some sort of rash. And so you only get little hints of what's going on, and it takes longer to get from, this season starts with Carol Hathaway attempting suicide because Doug Ross had left her. And then she survives that, rehabilitates, and comes back, and people, react to that. And then she is dating another doctor, and then she gets engaged, and then she's planning a wedding. And then I think the next episode, the finale, is about how they're at the wedding and she doesn't go through with it. So that whole storyline, takes the whole season. And, that could take the whole season in other shows as well.
I was going to say, that's a year. That's a year of Friends. That's a year of anything else. How does 15 years?
I know. I think though, because you don't get overwhelmed by it. You're not exhausted by it. It's like, so that relationship wasn't the crux of the episode. Or the season. Yes, it happened throughout. You got little bits here and there, but it wasn't what the season was about. It was sort of background to the medical stuff. And so when you get to the next season, you're ready to see what's next for Carol. You're not like, more Carol relationship stuff.
More Carol.
It's like, let's see what, it doesn't, you don't get tired of it as quickly, maybe. And then you could just keep bringing in new characters. And as long as they're interesting and their little bits of story in between the medical situations are interesting enough, then you'll keep watching.
Do you go back and rewatch it outside of this? Like, do you catch reruns of ER?
I'd like to. I've been trying to get my wife to sit down and actually start watching it. But she and I are kind of trying to get through other newer things. And so we keep, when it's like, what do you want to watch tonight? I always push for starting ER because I would sit and watch all the episodes up through, season 6 or 7 again. Because those are some really good seasons, those first years.
I'll take your word. But
please do.
Yeah, no, I definitely not a show I could binge again. And I guess it used to be rerun like that. It'd be rerun in the mornings for a few hours. But yeah, I can't sit more than one of these again. It's too much for
Understood.
Tim.
Understood.
All right.
What does the audience think? I'd like to know. Who else is a big fan of the ER out there?
Hey, have you been to the ER? If anyone else out there has ever visited the ER, maybe text us that. Maybe stop by the old www.20popcast.com, the website for this show you just listened to, 20th Century Popcast. Why don't you check out that website as a segue and tell us about the time you went to the ER because of the rebar through your unborn child's head that killed your wife. But or you can just tell us how you feel about the show. 20th Century Popcast, a weekly podcast. If you go to the website, you can always listen to the newest episode as it streams there. You can also find an episode guide with links to all of our past episodes. You can also find links on that website to things like how to subscribe. You can subscribe to the show and get a new episode every time it comes up every week. You can do that on Apple Podcasts. You can do that on Stitcher. You can do that on other Android devices. If you do listen to us on Apple Podcasts, I would ask that through the app, you have the option of leaving us a little review, giving us like a star rating. If you could do that, if you like the show or if you don't like the show, but just leave some little couple words there or something. It helps us out. It helps us gain an audience, helps us know our audience. It helps us feel better about what we're doing here. You can also find me. Oh God, I'm fucking this up. Can you take over?
No, it's perfect.
Is it perfect?
Yeah.
Perfect.
You can find us. You can find us elsewhere. You can find us on Twitter. You can follow me at RH Canning. You can follow Tim on Twitter at Subcultist.
That's right.
I said that for you. I hope that's okay.
Thank you ever so much. That's the best. That's this week's show, everyone. But next week will be next week's show until it hits. Then it'll be this week's show. And this will have been last week's. So until then, turn and cough. That's a good one. Clear.
I was going to say.
That's a pretty good one.
Intubate. Stat,
intubate, and sit on this, please, miss.